Okay, right now let's step into the model number 2. It will be a little bit more complex than the first one. The data preparation is easy, especially if you are working already in Blender and familiar with Unreal a little bit. In Model 2, we will be talking about adjusting model pivots in modeling tools in Unreal Engine, automotive material pack description. We will create our own material for blinkers, for example. We will get into some reflection fixes. We will do some car rig adjustments, basically rig our car, and we'll have a look at all the functions that this rigging solution provides. First, we will start with the adjusting model pivots. The thing is that the rig works the way that wheel has its pivot in the very center of the wheel. So if we try to rotate the wheel, it will be rotating at the center point. And this is why I said that you don't want any camber in it. So if you have any camber and when you try to rotate the wheel, it will go like this and it will look really strange and it doesn't, work well. So this is why you should not have any camber on your wheels when you're preparing the model before importing it into Unreal, because in Unreal, changing the pivot of that wheel will be just really problematic. So before we put our car on the rig, we first need to prepare our wheels, calipers, and basically this will be it. So for now, let's delete the body and delete all other things which I added to the scene before. Oops, this one, yep. So we have two set of wheels. As I said, we have the front wheel, rear wheel, and the calipers. The calipers are made this way on purpose. So it is really easy to do to change the pivot in Unreal. Just in selection mode, go into modeling. Just remember, as we just enabled the modeling tools plugin, those two, they should be enabled. And if you don't have them enabled, enable and restart the engine, because otherwise you will not have this modeling tab here. Here in form, you should go and edit pivot and just click center and accept. This is it. And your wheel is properly rotating in the center of its axis, and there are no problems. It is always, straight. It's working fine. No problem here. Let's reset the rotation. Now you need to do the same for the rear wheel. So go here, edit pivot, and hit center and accept. With the caliper, that will be a little bit more complex because the caliper doesn't have this center, but it should have the same pivot as the wheel itself. So let's first try to do that with a caliper on the rear wheel. So select the caliper, click edit pivot. You see it's somewhere over there. What I usually do, I just select the wheel and copy and paste these values here for X, Y, and Z axis and hit accept. So if you select both right now, holding shift, the wheel and the caliper and rotating that, it will be fine. It will be working together really, really good. So yeah, that works really well. The same we can do with this front caliper. Just edit pivot, select the front wheel, copy and paste those values, and hit accept. So yeah, the caliper now has the same pivot with the wheel as it should with the caliper. So now we need to do the same, but with the wheel on the left side, with the caliper on the left side. So we need first to rotate this to 180 degrees and just basically go here, go to unlit mode by holding here or by clicking Alt 3 And let's get into inside and see what we have with in terms of the caliper and the brake disc. So we can just like go inside and see if it's matching. Let's see here. Yeah, that is pretty fine. That works good. That works good. So it will sit properly in the wheel. Yes, all fine. Now do the same. Just select the caliper, go to modeling tools, form, edit pivot, and copy and paste the location of all of these axes into the pivot of the caliper and hit accept. So if we select it and we rotate it, it looks all fine. That works really, really well. Now let's go further here and do the same procedure with the rear wheel. Again, 180 degrees rotation. Go here and match the position of the brake disc with the brake caliper. See if it's fine. Yeah, looks good to me. Looks good to me. Now we can do the same for the caliper. Pick the caliper, modeling mode, again, edit pivot and copy and paste the values. Okay, accept. So yeah, this is it. Now you can actually delete this from the scene. We don't need to adjust position of the body, so we can just go straight to the rig. And here's our rig, pass and jumping platform. What we do usually don't work with this rig. You should always have something that you can, go back to. So basically click Ctrl D to duplicate that one and name it Blueprint Rig 911. Okay, and now let's get into this blueprint. When you open viewport, you see that it is rigged with a model of the wheels. You can use these wheels if you don't have the proper ones. This one is actually really nice high poly rims with these tires and with the some sort of brakes. Everything is like high detailed. It's looking really, really good. You can keep this one if you don't have the car with good wheel models. This should be just fine. So usually what you do, you have the body, which you put in the body, you have the wheels, which you put in the front wheels, rear wheels, front calipers, and so on. That is like absolutely fine. But sometimes, as I mentioned in the beginning, the caliper may have some writing on it and it will not work, properly with the rotation or multiplication by -1. So you would need to attach it manually, and I will show you how to do that. So first, let's put the body mesh. Let's go to our Porsche 911, select the body, and just simply use selected asset and place it like this. You can drag and drop, it doesn't matter. It can be done different ways, just like applying that or drag and drop it. Now, let's add the wheels. Don't worry about the position. We will fix it just in a second. So let's go with the front wheel and apply to front wheel mesh. See how well it was replaced. Now let's go with the rear wheel. Do the same for the rear wheel mesh. Apply it here. Looks good. And with the front caliper, what should be done? So if you take the front caliper and apply it, bam, it works. It sits just there and there. But the thing is that the writing of the Porsche will be written like other way around. So if I go to the mesh and apply to the Porsche writing some emissive material, for example, so we will see. Let's go for the lamp or something. Okay. Now, see, it is just not written in the proper way. And if you try to mirror that somehow, for example, by -1, that will not give you like the proper result. It just doesn't work properly. And this is the problem of the wheels which have some writing here. But we are going to fix that, don't worry. In that case, if that happens, so to maintain the proper writing on the mesh of the caliper, you can go back to the rig structure. You can reset this one, clear the calipers, and here where you see calipers and those are those components, you can select the front right caliper, go to the mesh, select front right caliper and drag and drop it here on the front right. Okay, good. Now let's go to the front left. We have also front left caliper here. So what we do the same thing. We put it on the front left. And when you edit, it will be rotated not the proper way because the wheel itself is just like rotated 180 degrees to, you know, maintain the position of the wheel and the writings which are happening here. What you need to do is to select this caliper and multiply it by -1 on y-axis. And you have the proper position. Let's also apply some material on this one, on the correct one, here on the left. Here we go, just to see. See, so this one now is properly aligned. You can read the writing on here. It is placed properly and sits how it should be, just the same as the one on the front. Now you need to do the same for the rear one. So pick the rear right caliper first, the component here in the rig, and go to the meshes of the Porsche and select the rear right caliper, drag and drop and put it here. Remember, you need to keep this one selected first, otherwise it will not be attaching properly and it will drop somewhere below here, or you'll be just looking for it a lot of time before you can drag and connect it to the component. Now let's go to the caliper rear left. Pick the rear left caliper, assign it. Now select the mesh which you just brought here and multiply it by -1. All done, all working, and all is good. Remember, this only happens if you have the calipers with some writings on it. If you don't have any writings, it's just the caliper for the regular car, it's not a problem. It will never happen in that case. But I wanted to pick the case which is just a little bit more complex to show you what can happen and what you might face and how to fix it. So this is the easiest way how to fix it if you have the calipers with writings. Also, you can separate the writings and then just put the writings on top as the separate geometry. But yeah, doesn't matter how you do that, but this is really the quickest way. Now we need to adjust the car body height and body position. So let's see from the right side. Let's select the right side and just let's put the car. Let's go back to the blueprint at the very top of our structure and adjust the body height. So because the pivot of the body is somewhere in the bottom, it sits higher than it should. The pivot should be in the center, but to be honest, I don't care about that. I don't want to change the pivots because we also have the glass which has the separate pivots. Sometimes you can separate the spoiler which will also have the separate pivot. So yeah, it just gives extra complexity. If you're changing the pivots for multiple objects, it's just much easier to use the body height parameter So let's just go and put minus 30 centimeters and adjust the position of the wheel. So front axle offset, it determines how far the axle offset goes to the front. So if we lower this value, it will go to the center. I think 122 is fine value. And for the back wheel, 122 is also the fine value. Yeah, seems so. Now what you can notice in perspective that see is just two outside. It's not also the problem. Front axle offset. Now we need to pick the front wheel side offset, which should be something probably 80. Yeah, looks fine. And the rear one, let's try also 80. Maybe even 79. So yeah, that looks good. I think that looks fine for me. It's pretty much enough. As you notice, that suspension is just like a little bit off, I would say, but that's not a problem. If you scroll very to the very bottom, there is the suspension setup, which allows you to move and do the corrections. The thing is, as the body was a little bit higher by default, not in the center of the pivot, and we needed to, lower that car, the suspension also went down. But we can return the suspension to the proper correction. So this is the height offset. So if we go and set up something like 50, that should be the proper value. Now we have the suspension sitting in the proper position, and the knob of the mount is actually holding the wheel where it should. So the same we should do for rear suspension height offset by setting it to 50. If you have any troubles and or your model has some naked parts and you don't want the suspension to be seen, you just can hide it and it will not be displayed at all. So yeah, now the car rig setup is finished and we need to add the glass. So we pick all of the parts of the glass and select body. As I say, always select the component first. Select body and drag and drop it here. And because the pivot is the same for each part of the glass for the car, it will be correctly placed and you don't need to worry about that. And it will work with suspension and with all other parts and with everything else. So just to be sure, it should be attached to the body here. So it works really nice and well. After that, you can hit compile and save.